Today, I'm going to be going through the flip-flop of the lawfare against President Trump. Are tariffs on? Are they off? RFK Jr. just cancels a major $700 million contract. What does that say about the direction of our country? All of this and more to help me go through this. I have independent journalist Alex Newman. Alex, thank you for joining me.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me, Stephen.
So I always enjoy our conversations. You fly all over the world. You track stuff that my other guests aren't tracking. So it's always fun for me to get you on to hear what's going on around the world. Just some background. Alex is an independent journalist. He is an author. He authored a book called The Deep State. He's also the founder of Liberty Sentinel, which has a newsletter with incredible information. So I'm reading two new reports that are out. Let me share the details with this context. Democrats go on the media saying that Republicans only win elections because they have a billionaire named Elon Musk. So this new report out today shows that Elon Musk saved the U.S. government around $160 billion in 100 days and was paid $0. The other report shows that billionaire George Soros has received around $260 million through USAID and other government grants. He then used that money to flip elections, run corrupt DAs, and fund the invasion of America. Can you tell me again why Elon Musk is so bad?
It's truly amazing to hear the Democrats talk like this, Stephen. The reality is, and anybody can verify this objectively, the majority of the huge money donors, the billionaire class that Bernie Sanders and some of the other Democrats love to rail on, donate almost exclusively to Democrats and occasionally a left-wing rhino in the Republican Party for good measure. This has been true for a very long time. George Soros is just one of many examples. And the point that you mentioned, I think, bears and is worth repeating. George Soros and many others like him, he's far from alone. He finds programs that he likes that are interesting. And I've done a lot of work on this. It doesn't matter if you're looking at Latin America or Eastern Europe or even the Far East. He finds programs that he likes. He donates a little bit of money to them. And then he makes sure that his buddies in Washington, D.C. open up the floodgate of federal taxpayer dollars to go to them. So he starts with the seed funding, and then the huge money is extracted from middle-class Americans and, of course, Europeans as well to support those projects. So George Soros and many of these other billionaires that donate to the Democrats have, of course, an ideological interest in this, but they also have a financial interest in this, and we need to be very clear. Solyndra is one example that kind of came out into the public where the huge wealthy donors were donating money to the Obama administration, and then the Obama administration was steering federal dollars to their companies like Solyndra. That's just the tip of the iceberg. It is so rotten. It is such a swamp. The average American would struggle to comprehend it.
Yeah. I was looking at that going, okay, this guy saved 160 billion and made $0. And this guy who you can barely talk about, or they call you anti-Semitic, he has pilfered $260 million and then didn't even enrich himself. He used it to try to destroy liberty and the American dream, the American experiment. I don't know how that guy's not locked up.
Yeah, and frankly, one of my colleagues at the New American Magazine, William Jasper, did a really good article about George Soros, showing that there are multiple federal and state statutes that criminalize some of the very things he has been caught doing, whether it's funding groups and riots that are involved in destruction of property, whether it's subversive activities, whether it is efforts to undermine people's rights under color of law. One of the areas that I focused in recently was the country of Georgia. George Soros gave some money to these training programs for members of the Orthodox clergy there. The most trusted institution in Georgia is the Orthodox Church. Then they got American taxpayers and European taxpayers to come in behind them and fund, LGBT trainings and climate trainings and regionalization. They should support the European Union trainings. So they're taking our money by force. That's ultimately what taxes are. It's money extracted from the population by force. They're using it to enrich themselves, and they're using it to destroy society, culture, and the values that actually underpinned our societies for generations.
Wow. Such a shame. Let me stay on the topic of Elon Musk and Doge. Elon has now left the federal government. His special employee contract has run out of days. He needed to get back to Tesla and robots and sending rockets up into space to save astronauts that Biden abandoned. Where do you see Doge going forward? To me, I'm seeing like, I don't want it to sound like a pyramid scheme, but you had Elon Musk, and now he's basically trained all of the cabinet members of President Trump, and they're now individually in their own silo or area. They're doging their own stuff. Do you expect us to continue to see these stories of crazy contracts canceled, billions of dollars saved, corruption, things like that?
I think we'll keep seeing that, and I'm very grateful for what Elon Musk did during his brief time in federal service. And by the way, a great personal expense to himself. You mentioned that he didn't take a single penny. He came under relentless assault. His companies came under relentless assault. If and when Democrats end up back in power, they're going to target him. We all know it. So this was a great personal sacrifice to himself. So I'm grateful for what he did. But before he left, he actually expressed some concerns about this big, beautiful bill, that it didn't enshrine some of these cuts into law, that it didn't enshrine some of Trump's agenda into law. So that bill has not made it out of the Senate yet as of this recording. So there's still an opportunity to fix some of this. And I think even just to honor the legacy of what Elon Musk did, even just to try to preserve some of these cost-saving measures and abuse cutting into the future, these things have to be enshrined into federal law. So there's a big burden on the Senate right now to make sure they get this done. Donald Trump has given tacit permission for Republican senators to go through there with a red pen. Now is the time to get some of this stuff enshrined into federal law so that we don't end up right back where we started when Biden left office, if and when we get another deep state Democrat puppet in the White House.
Yeah. I actually gained a lot of respect for Trump, even though I already had quite a quite a large amount of it. But it passed in the House, and he celebrated. Yes, let's move this forward, right? But then several Republicans came forward and said, "Listen, I'm a no until we clean this up." And he was like, "Okay, clean it up. Like make it better." Like so, instead of like digging in his heels and saying, "No, we got to get this done," it's like, "Okay, take some time." Make this thing better, but we've got to get it passed. We can't let the government close down. We've got to get some of this stuff put through, especially the tax savings stuff. Do you think we'll end up around July 4th, or do you think this is going to be pushed back?
I think a lot depends on the battle and how it takes shape. We see right now the swamp forces are moving in. The lobbyists are moving their people in. You can't cut my special program. You can't cut this funding source. You can't cut this agency. You can't cut that subsidy. So the lobbyists are descending on Capitol Hill like a swarm of locusts. And this battle is going to be tough. There are some good, really solid Republicans that are trying to do the right thing. Very grateful for Senator Ron Johnson. Very grateful for Senator Rand Paul saying, look, guys, we've got to trim the spending. We've got an opportunity now. We have Republican control of both houses. We've got a Republican in the White House. It's time to rein in the deficit and the crazy spending. It's time to make sure they can't do this to us again. So I'm very grateful for these efforts. But if we're honest, if we do an objective assessment here, the reality is going up against the swamp is no small feat. It takes a lot of persistence. It takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of backbone. The threats that they put out, we're going to primary you. We're going to put millions of dollars into your opponent. It's going to be a long and tough fight. I hope they'll make good progress. I hope it'll come before the 4th of July, but it's going to be a very, very tough battle. And everybody listening to us right now can participate in this. You have 2 U.S. senators who represent your state. Give them a call. Let them know what you think. They're supposed to be representing you. How can they do that if they don't know what you think? So give them a call, tell them what you think, and maybe that'll give them the courage and the backbone to stand up against the lobbyists of the swamp.
It's so crazy you said that. While you were talking, I was just thinking, my next question to Alex should be, are there specific Republicans that my audience should call? Like, should 10,000 of us call Speaker Mike Johnson and respectfully say, hey, we voted for Elon Musk and the DOGE program. Get it done. We voted for, stripping out the stuff from this bill. Is that who we go after, or is it just the senators in our own state?
Well, I think right now the Senate is where the action is at. Eventually, the House is probably going to have to be consulted again. Depending on what comes out of the Senate, they may have to vote again. There's going to be a conference committee where the two houses come together. So I do think we need to keep up our pressure, first of all, on our own representative, right? We need to realize we have personal responsibility as Americans over how our representatives vote. Obviously, we can't control them, but we can certainly make our voices heard as citizens. And I believe we have an obligation, a responsibility to do that. So let's focus each on our own representative, and then also Speaker Johnson. We all had really high hopes for him when he went in, and he certainly has been better than some previous Republican speakers that we've had. I won't mention any names over the last decade. I'm very glad that, for example, that they're moving against the funding for Planned Parenthood. You wouldn't even think that would be a topic for discussion. Apparently, there's a bunch of squishy need Republicans that want to keep sending your tax money to abort babies and trans children. But we've got to get serious about the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives. So, yes, I would absolutely encourage people, focus on your own two senators, focus on your own member in the House of Representatives, but then also focus on some of the key ones. Speaker of the House is important. Senate Majority Leader. These are key people that need to hear from Americans because, for the most part, they're hearing from the people with billions of dollars that have lobbyists on Capitol Hill. If they don't hear from you, they'll figure you're not paying attention or you don't care. We need to show them that we are paying attention and we do care very much.
Okay. I'm asking my audience right now. This is my commercial interruption. Call the senators in your own state and respectfully tell them what you want them to do, and then call John Thune and Mike Johnson, the two most powerful in the House and also in the Senate, and let's make our voices heard. Let me ask you this. RFK Jr., Dr. Markay, Dr. J. Battacharya, they've all said there is no positive data that the mRNA shot saved lives, and there is no net positive benefit for having this on the childhood immunization schedule. They've now pulled it from the vaccine schedule. And then just last night, I read RFK Jr. has canceled a $700 million taxpayer-funded mRNA contract with Moderna for mRNA shots for chickens. What do you think about all of this coming out?
I'll tell you what, Stephen, I am very grateful. I am very, very grateful. I know a lot of the Maha people were ready to throw RFK under the bus because he wasn't moving quickly enough or vociferously enough. The realities of serving in Washington, D.C. in this swamp are far more complex than everyday Americans and voters can understand. I do believe RFK is doing the right thing. I do believe he wants to do the right thing. In my own conversations with him before he took office, I really got the sense that this guy was legit. And you can often tell from politicians whether they're the real deal or not. RFK always struck me as very sincere. I'll be the first to say I don't agree with him on quite a few things. But when it comes to these things, the mRNA shots, the targeting of children, he is exactly right. He's exactly on the money. Some of the reports that they've put out recently about the pseudoscience underpinning this gender affirming care. I mean, RFK is doing a lot. He's doing it very quickly. Very grateful for standing up against these mRNA concoctions. And by the way, that's an especially tough thing for him to do because of the administration he's serving in. So that is not an easy thing for him to come out and, without saying it openly, kind of rebuking one of the signature accomplishments of his boss from the previous administration. So I think we need to give RFK the honor and the respect he deserves. I think we need to show some patience. He's moving in the right direction. This is like trying to turn the Titanic around after it hit the iceberg and do it on a dime. You just can't do that. It's a process. He's doing very important things, obviously proceeding in a strategic manner. All of us, I think, would like to see this move a little bit faster, but we just have to be realistic about the realities in Washington, D.C. So I'm very, very happy with what we're seeing, and I think we're going to see a whole lot more in the months ahead.
I do too. You mentioned RFK Jr.'s boss and going up against, what he believes is the accomplishment of his first term. We're talking about President Donald J. Trump. I think Trump now knows he was lied to and manipulated. And I think RFK Jr. is the antidote. I think he knows, okay, I'm just going to give this guy free rein to go in and do what has to be done. The thing that made me nervous is, obviously, Pfizer and Moderna and others, they specifically worked to get this injected into our children because it would give them even greater immunity shield and familiarity. And this is totally normal and natural. Even a baby could get 3 of these by the time they're 6 months old. That's how great this shot is. But then you start looking at the information from Dr. Peter McCullough, Senator Ron Johnson, Dr. McCary, Jay Battacharya. Like these need to be pulled, and yet we're finding out just how difficult they are to get pulled. Was this the first step? Get it out of the children and then get it out of the adults? Losing weight can feel like an uphill battle, especially with the American diet. From nasty seed oils that hurt us to high fructose corn syrup that actually makes us more hungry. Americans have wrecked their gut health. This is where ThermoTrim steps in as a smart, science-backed solution. This USA-made fat burner starts by restoring your gut health. ThermoTrim has a gut bacteria found in thinner people, but not heavier Americans. ThermoTrim helps restore that so you can lose weight. It supports digestion and curbs cravings naturally. Have you tried other products to lose weight and change your health? I have. ThermoTrim is what my body needed. Get ThermoTrim to improve your gut health and start losing weight today. Visit redlineremedies.com or snap the QR code. Make sure to use code Gardner to get an additional 20% off today. We all feel better when we lose weight, and I want you to live a long and happy life.
I believe it is. Yeah. And the way the bureaucracy works is these things take a lot of time. You can't just wake up one morning and say, we're totally changing policy. There's public comment periods. There's committees that have to review stuff. You cannot just do it all with the wave of a magic wand. If you could, we'd be in a much worse situation from the 4 years of Joe Biden. Right? If they could have just waved magic wands and done all this to us, we would have been in really big trouble. So this is a process. I don't believe they have reached the end goal yet. Frankly, I think the end goal, we're already starting to see little glimpses of this, right? When the Trump administration talks about the lack of validity for these pardons signed by auto pens, I think we're getting a little glimpse of what we hope will be coming in the months and in the years ahead. And that is accountability for the people who deliberately lied. That is accountability for the people who deprived Americans of even basic rights, like the ability to make decisions about their own health and the health of their children. That's the direction we're moving in. That's the direction that we need to move in. And if you wonder whether RFK knows these things, you can pick up a copy of his book on Tony Fauci. He is very, very explicit. They know where the bodies are buried, but this has to be an organized process. You cannot just wave a magic wand. So I expect that by the time all is said and done, a lot of this stuff will be exposed. A lot of the bad policy will be removed. And I hope and I pray that we'll then be moving in the direction of accountability so that the people who did this to us are punished and so that nobody will dare to do it to us in the future.
Amen. I hope so. One thing, let me throw this. This might sound like completely wacky conspiracy theory, so just steer me back to the path of righteousness if I'm wrong. But Bill Gates and others, they've been pushing for this mRNA tech to be put into our livestock, our chickens, our vegetables, for heaven's sakes. Is this their way of saying, we don't trust you, but there's a lot of money and control. We're going to force vaccinate you through the food that you eat. I don't know, like that stuff ends up in our body. You are what you eat, right? So now if we have all these vaccinations in our food supply, was that their way of getting that into us without medical consent?
It absolutely is. And it's even worse than you are what you eat, Stephen. Without going too deep down the rabbit hole, you don't have to peer that deep down it to realize something very fishy is going on here. Bill Gates, I call him Bill Gates of hell. He wrote a piece for Foreign Affairs almost a decade ago called Gene Editing for Good. Now, Foreign Affairs is like the premier flagship magazine of the deep state in the United States. It's the mouthpiece of the Council on Foreign Relations. And in this article, he says, hey, we're already genetically engineering our crops. We're already genetically engineering some of our critters. We need to start genetically engineering our babies too. Now, Bill Gates is not a fool. Okay, he is a very, very intelligent man who's working with very intelligent people. And they have made their fortune. They have made their billions and billions of dollars in intellectual property. In fact, his dad taught him intellectual property is where the money is at. what they're talking about here. And unfortunately, our courts have even upheld this monstrous notion that if you can create new DNA, you can own the organism that results. When they talk about genetically engineering our crops, our livestock, and even people, we need to sit up and pay attention. They're dead serious about this. And then you look at the nexus with In-Q-Tel, another thing that nobody wants to talk about. This is the investment arm of the intelligence community. People like Michael Crow out at Arizona State University and his sidekick, George Post. These people have openly been talking for years about seizing control of the genetic code, not just of human beings and our food, but of all life on Earth. They've been talking about directed evolution. These people are into some seriously weird stuff, Stephen. They're talking about eternal life through a combination of merging with technology and manipulating the genetic code that God wrote for us. They're talking about becoming as gods, is actually the terminology that Yuval Noah Harari, one of the bigwigs over at the World Economic Forum, has started using. So there's a really dark agenda here. And I think part of it is about making money. You know, Bill Gates helped release all these crazy genetically engineered mosquitoes in my home state of Florida. Then we got malaria back. Now Bill Gates has been back in a malaria vaccine. Wow, what a coincidence. So there's a lot of these things that don't make sense. I do think a big part of it is money, but I think even more than that is a very dark agenda that is only now starting to come to light, but that is critical to understand.
You know what is so interesting is a lot of the names that you mentioned. These are people that want eternal life. They never want to die. They want to control the DNA, the genetic code. They want to make themselves God. And yet, these are the most godless, atheist people you'll ever meet in your life. They openly mock Judeo-Christian values, Judeo-Christian worshipers. Make Jesus out to be this like stupid, made up fairy tale that only dumb people would believe in. And yet, what are they chasing? They're chasing eternal life. They're like, it's so ironic to me that the very thing that they mock, that they're doing it, they're just trying to do it through science or philosophy or something else.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. And I'm reminded of Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, where Satan pops up in the garden, says, you won't surely die. No, you'll be as gods. All you got to do is disobey the real God, and then you can have eternal life. Then you can achieve godhood. Folks, you're not going to achieve eternal life without God, despite what you may have heard from your transhumanist techno wannabe overlords. That is, in my opinion, a highway to hell. And it's going to end in disaster. I mean, we're already starting to see kind of a sneak preview of where this goes. It's very, very dangerous stuff. And I was talking to Dr. McCullough. This was a couple of years ago when the studies were starting to come out that the mRNA injections were actually manipulating people's genetic code in a way that could even be passed on to daughter cells. This was coming out in the scientific literature, the peer-reviewed scientific literature. And we're only at the beginning of this revolution here with the mRNA and the CRISPR and the ability to manipulate, shut off genes, insert new genes, foreign genes into genetic code. And I'm telling people, this is very, very, very dangerous. You almost can't overstate the danger enough, because what we're talking about here is fundamentally transforming the nature of life on this planet. I don't believe they're going to get to their end destination, not for a moment, but there will be a lot of destruction on the way if these people aren't restrained.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. Okay. A judge has recently ruled that Trump, as president, has no authority to deal with tariffs on behalf of America. Then a different judge said, of course he does. Then an Obama judge says, no, I'm hitting Trump with a national injunction. He cannot negotiate these tariffs. Now an appeal court is saying, well, he can, but only until we come up with a final ruling. No president has ever been sued this much in 100 days. Your thoughts on this new weaponization and lawfare?
Lawfare is exactly what's happening here, Stephen. And they know that if they can tie him up enough in the courts, it doesn't really matter. If we can just keep all of this tied up in the courts for the next 4 years, they can get right back on their merry way as soon as they remove Trump from office at the end of his term. So we need to be very clear here. This is an abuse of the judicial system. And unfortunately, judges are allowing themselves to be part of this. It's very, very dangerous. So I was pleased to see Congress taking some action on this, trying to rein in these rogue judges. We've got to do more. The Congress has a lot of tools at its disposal. Now, Congress has a lot of authority. They have all legislative authority. They have the ability to delegate some of that. But one of the things that is specifically enshrined in their mandate is to deal with the judiciary. It's one of the many checks and balances that our founding fathers built into our constitutional system. They can impeach judges in extreme cases when they're misbehaving. And some of these judges, I think, are very clearly misbehaving. They can limit the jurisdiction of the courts. They can actually abolish courts. People don't realize the only court that is constitutionally mandated to exist at the federal level is the U.S. Supreme Court. So some of these judges, some of these courts, Ninth Circuit, I'm thinking about you, they want to go totally rogue and act like tyrants in black robes. They can literally be abolished. Congress has the power of the purse. There's a lot of tools at their disposal. And if you go back to the very beginning of our country's history, Thomas Jefferson was concerned that we would end up in a situation like this, that we would have rogue judges imagining themselves to become oligarchs, that they are our rulers, even though they're not elected, even though they're not accountable. And unfortunately, we now have come into that situation. It's not new. It's just more grotesque than it's ever been. But if you go back to 1973 with Roe versus Wade, which, finally, thankfully, 50 years later, they recognize that was unconstitutional. We've got to have Congress and the president stepping in here and saying, look, we are not going to be ruled by unaccountable judges. You have a place in our system, and we respect that, but Congress is in charge of lawmaking. The president is in charge of faithfully executing the laws. You guys have your role. Stay in your lane, and we'll do what we're supposed to do.
Yeah. I remember after the 2020 election, President Trump said in an interview one time, he said, being president was really easy for me. Staying president was really hard. And now I think where we're in the majority, he's probably thinking staying president is easy. Being president is hard. They're making his life really, really difficult. And now you have Jasmine Crockett and Jamie Raskins and others saying, when we win in 2026, we're going to immediately impeach you and we're going to go after your family. Like this is the type of threats that I would expect out of like old Russia or North Korea. And yet here we have the Democrat, at least the more vocal ones, they're just coming right out. They're not even hiding their playbook anymore. Our plan is to ruin you and your family and remove you as president as soon as we get back in. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and they absolutely will if we let them. There's no question about it. And I believe they'll go a step further. Jamie Raskin, since you mentioned him, he is on video before Donald Trump took office for the second time saying, even if it means civil war-like conditions, we're prepared to do anything necessary to stop him. That's crazy talk. I mean, does he understand the implications of a civil war in this country? We already did it once. Hundreds of thousands of people died as a result. Our nation still has not fully recovered from that. What kind of lunatic seriously talks like that? What kind of lunatic even allows that to enter into their political discourse? This is unbelievably dangerous. And Stephen, I think a lot of people don't realize the anger that is being deliberately fomented, the rage that's being fomented on the other side. Because today, people are isolated in their social media ghettos, and they're on Facebook and they're on X, and they're just hearing their friends and their family, and we all kind of think alike. The other side, the radical left, are being prepared as we speak to unleash violence, civil unrest, and potentially civil war in our country. They brought a bunch of foreign operators into our country over the last 4 years to help with this. And so I don't think it's fear-mongering to say that our country is in grave danger if we don't get this situation under control. And there's also a risk for Donald Trump here. They want him to behave like a dictator so they can say, see, we told you, the guy's a tyrant. So if they can unleash, and the left has used this very strategically and very effectively for generations now. They went a little bit overboard with Barack Obama's buddy Bill Ayers when they were bombing the Pentagon and the State Department and the Capitol and murdering cops and then blowing up their funerals. People were like, that's a little bit too much, but the media always provides cover for them. So we need to be aware that there are forces that fully intend to destroy the United States of America. And if we're not careful, they will try to unleash a civil war in this country. As you heard Congressman Jamie Raskin say, he is the tip of the iceberg when we're talking about this. And I know Trump understands this. In fact, during the first term, the director of policy and planning on his National Security Council, Rich Higgins, outlined it in an excellent memo. Folks, if you haven't read it, I recommend you do. It's called the Higgins Memo. He explained that what Trump was facing in the first term, he described it as a Maoist-style insurgency, where the deep state, which wants to be God on earth, is bringing together this coalition of Islamists and socialists and communists and people dedicated to the destruction of the United States, not just as a nation, but even as an ideal. Folks, those forces, those people, those organizations didn't go anywhere. In fact, they got stronger over the last 4 years under Joe Biden, thanks in part to your tax money. So we have a very, very serious problem on our hands in this country. And frankly, I pray that it doesn't come to that, but I think we need to be at least prepared for the possibility.
Yeah, I read these things in the news. I see the clips and I go, wow, if we don't maintain or grow in the House and the Senate, it's toast. This won't be a 4-year presidency. This will be a 2-year presidency. And then we're going to watch the president that we like, that we voted for, have his life absolutely destroyed. I mean, these people are vicious. They're mean. They're ugly. I really hope that the voting base understands there's actually more on the line in 2026 than in 2024. And
Stephen, they won't just go after Trump. I mean, we saw after the first term, they went after General Michael Flynn. They went after Steve Bannon. They went after Peter Navarro. They went after Roger Stone. They went after Paul Manafort. They went after Mike Lindell. And I could go on and on and on, right? They are not just going to go after the president and his family. They will go after anybody that they perceive was important in helping him win, helping him advance his agenda. And part of it is intimidation. They want the people listening to us right now to be cowering in their basements in fear. Well, hey, if they can take out the president of the United States, if they can get his family, what are they going to do to little old me? You know, I'm just an electrician. I don't want them to come after me. So this is a blatant attack on the rule of law. It's a blatant attack on our constitutional system, and we must not let it stand.
I agree. Alex, thank you for taking time out of your day to come on. If people want to tell my audience about the newsletter with Liberty Sentinel.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Stephen. So people can find that at libertysentinel.org. It's free. We put it out twice a week. Just the most important information that we see going on, whether it's in education or geopolitics or national politics. So all that's available at libertysentinel.org. You can also find my work at thenewamerican.com. And then I'm a fellow at Classical Conversations, a national homeschool movement with 135,000 students. So all those are good places to find me. But personal website, libertysentinel.org, and then on X at AlexNewman_JOU.
Okay, great. I'm going to put those direct links so people can find you easily. Thank you so much. We'll have you on again. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Stephen. Really appreciate it.